Hey, greetings to you. Thank you for your presence. My name's Philip Daniel Miles. I am here today to share with you a astrological broadcast, a presentation where we're going to look at some very beautiful cycles. Geometry is all like mathematics and stuff like that. Well, our astrological cycles are the beauty of this mathematics playing out within us in our emotional experience, in our energetic experience, as well as externally through all of our experiences in the physical world as well. And so what I'm going to do with us in this presentation is actually going to move into looking at Venus cycles and how we actually have Venus return to the same position every year, but at the same time, it's going to be falling on particular dates. Every 8 years, it's going to fall on a different date. In fact, for the first 8 years of our life, Venus will return on a different date, and yet it will return on the same date every 8 years. This is insane. This is madness. But once we get to recognize, okay, well, if this is happening like a stream, like a thread, then we can learn what's happening every time that we're going through that particular Venus cycle. And the depth, was it a morning star? Was it an evening star? Well, it swaps. It depends where it last went retrograde in one of the 5 signs over the course of time that we air out these different stories and learn the depth of our value. But first of all, what we're going to look at is actually the presentation with regards to Saturn and Jupiter. This is how I found my journey actually into this presentation. I was like, I want to do an explanation of the astrological lifespan of all cycles. And this would mean actually that if you was going to do it with Uranus, which takes 84 years, you'd end up having 7 Jupiter cycles within that period. And so I wanted to synthesize with it, and I was looking through. I mean, you can go through one of these great books that I've got from a colleague. I actually interviewed this colleague on my YouTube channel, April Elliott Kent. She's a great astrologer. I got this book about 10 years ago. It's got all the academics about all the cycles in it. It's a fantastic thing if you're actually taking your astrology seriously. It's one of my favorite books. And so the maths is one great template which we learn about. It's geometry, it's cycles. I say it's cycles, it just repeats. And so basically what we learn is about the timing of our lifetime. Obviously, every 28 days we have a lunar cycle, and the moon, well, it rules our nearest visible satellite, the moon. It's like our interior energy, our feelings, and it's our boundaries with regards to our feelings. And they're so powerful, our feelings. They tell us if we're feeling okay or if we're feeling a little bit restricted. Whereas the farthest thing we can see of our naked eye, Saturn, well, that takes 28 years to do a whole cycle of the sky. It tells us all about our external boundaries. It tells us about the physical world. It's very emotional as well. And it's just as distinct as our nearest interior boundary, Cancer, the moon. Capricorn, Saturn is our farthest extended boundary. So we actually learn to be our nearest and dearest lover with our lunar cycles, and our farthest example of love with our Saturn cycles, which takes 28 years. And so we learn about all of these different things. I mean, like you say, you could go a little bit crazy after 84 years, but maybe it's just that you access your genius. That's a Uranus cycle. You break that Uranus cycle down into half. That's 242s, and that's what you would call a midlife crisis. Let's buy a Porsche, beep beep, that kind of thing. No offense if you already got a Porsche and you're younger than 42. We're just playing. So we're going to get dead serious and academic. I've got a presentation to share on the screen, so let's go into that without too much of a further ado. If you'd like to invest in a consultation with me, where I can empower you to the timing of your own chart, of your own cycles, then I'm here for you. You can get hold of me by the usual means. It's all the information is in the description box below. I do your natal chart readings. I do your relationship readings. I do progress chart readings. I do electional chart readings. In fact, I even do astrological mentorship. If you want to just invest, I'm here with the time that you invest to be able to share whatever you would like me to share with. If it's within my abilities, I'm here to guide you. It's what I do. And so thank you for your investments. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. We actually have the moon right now going through the last degree of Taurus in its exaltation. It'll be making its way into Gemini while we do this presentation. So thank you for your presence. Today is Saturn's Day, the Sabbath. So let's crack on. I see you in the live chat. Jazz K, Weeberson, Lauren, Epiphany, Make George Orwell, Jazz K. I thank you each for your presence. Spiritual Vase or Verse. I'm grateful for each of you in this live chat. Kanye, you're all dearly appreciated. If you're watching this in a recording, I'm grateful for you. Thank you for being grateful for yourself also. So let me share my screen. I put this together over the past few hours. I didn't have anything to show you guys when I woke up this morning, but I was inspired. I was inspired, spiraling up within myself. I was like, what can I create? I used what we have had today, an aspect between Mars in Libra, making a trine to Saturn, retrograde in Aquarius. We had a really thought, provocative, direct, how can I take responsibility? How can I put my time into something that I feel joy with? And so I did this presentation for us. So let me bring it up on screen. Here we go. Excuse me in the old riffraff. Over there, I see you in Oz, Joss. I am grateful for you. Right, we're going to do this presentation in two halves. Excuse me, let me get it organized. We're going to do the first bit, which is coming up. Here we go. Let me get all this sorted. It does take a little bit of patience with me. I'm like juggling all kinds of things. It seems that we got there though. Here we go. Get this. Let's get this show on the road. Present. Here we go. It seems to be working. So here we go. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for sticking with us. As I say, you can invest in your own chart reading with me. All the information you need is below. But here is planetary cycles beyond linear time, because when we know the cycles of astrology, we really do know the depth of things beyond the straight line time. And firstly, we're just going to talk about Saturn. Saturn, as I said, takes 28, some say 27, some say 29 years. When you finish your Saturn return, it's a full 29-year cycle. And so we can recognize that this is almost like 30, isn't it? It's almost so close to 30, so close to 3 decades, but it's not quite there. And so this is why I came to Venus. We'll get to that. Let's just break this down bit by bit. So when we break this into quarters, we see that we have our Saturn opening square. And that takes us 7 years. It's a 90-degree angle, which is like friction. Its 10th square is like Mars, Aries energy. It's just, I want to break free. I'm going off and I'm doing something, and I'm doing it for me. So at 7 years old, it's the time where we seek to be empowered beyond the support structure that we have become reliant upon. Obviously, do not caregivers, whether they are our parents or Sava or authority that we have become reliant upon. We strive to individuate. You know, we kind of like to make our own dinner. Maybe we want to go out and play and not come in until after dinner, that kind of thing. We just want to break free. That's the Saturn first quarter. And we learn everything comes in these particular sevens, in these particular quarters. There's a magic to this number. And so we look again, and it's not exactly 7 either, I would say, with Saturn. This is the thing. It's quite interesting that it's got like, we break it down on these kind of annual proportions, but actually it's more like 7 years and 3.5 months is probably your average kind of quantifiable ratio there, which means that we actually have our Saturn opposition, which means that Saturn has gone 180 degrees from where we have it in our natal charts. We experience Saturn opposing Saturn. Well, if we're going to say that a 90-degree angle is like Aries, Mars, then we're going to say a 180-degree angle is more like Libra, Venus. And it's more about seeing the challenge in opposition. How can we open up without compromise? How can we open up without conceding? How can we find that actually this opposition is something we can learn from? We can earn our own respect. We can allow the other thing that's opposing from us to earn some credibility too. An opposing angle, normally a few months before we turn 15 years old, is when we have the Saturn opposition. As I say, it's more like 14 years and 7 months down the line. And we can demonstrate how we are able to take responsibility for ourselves, and we can often come head to head with an external authority or even ourselves as we claim our own authority. I'll give you an example. When I was 7 years old, my parents broke up. Saturn square. When I had Saturn opposition personally, I returned to society after a couple of years of being agoraphobic, or as we call it in the UK, agoraphobic. And so that was very challenging, an opposition to return into schooling system after being at home for almost 2 years. That was a challenge for me. But if I didn't face the music, if I didn't take responsibility for my personal experience, then who's to say? I certainly wouldn't be where I am now. I ask you guys in the live chat, what did you experience when you were 7 years old on your first Saturn square? What was it that you may have experienced on your first Saturn opposition? Hey, you guys, you're smarty pants, bunch of astrological stars. Maybe you tell me what happened on your second Saturn first quarter square or your second Saturn opposition. I've not had my second Saturn first quarter square or my second Saturn opposition yet. I'm in between my Saturn return and my first Saturn opposition. In fact, it shall be that I've got Saturn natally in Sagittarius. So when Saturn returns out of shadow, I'll have a 60-degree sextile back to my natal Saturn. Anyway, that's enough hullabaloo. Let's get this back to what we're talking about. So we're experiencing a Saturn closing square, which means that we're halfway through that cycle on the opposition. We're taking responsibility for how we can empower ourselves with our own sense of authority as we discover our own sense of internal power. Rather than always blaming or throwing it outward, we can actually recognize that we do have a sense of power. We're not victim, as I felt I was before I returned back to. I felt very much victim to external situations, but I claimed my power back. I put myself back into pole position. I got centered, and that was my Saturn opposition. And so 7 years and 3 months or so later, I was coming on to the age of 22. Not quite there yet. But coming on, and Saturn was making it 270 degrees through its first cycle of my lifetime. And that's what it does for all of us. We have a Saturn closing square. We experience our third quarter angle. As I say, this is just before the 22nd annual solar return. And at this point in life, we can truly find where we are the fruit being cut from the tree. It's our first true sense of being liberated as a seedling. Still beneath the watch of Saturn's extended shadow, we branch out. I remember when I was 22 years old, that's the first time I left my mother's house and I went and I lived on my own in the big city. And I was still, borrowing maybe money from my mum every now and again. I was still under the branches of the tree. The shadow was still there. And so the fruit doesn't fall far from it, does it? When we're the age of 21, 22, I mean, we're all different. Some people have different experiences. I was quite mollycoddled myself, and so I was still learning. But some people, they grow and they move out at the age of 16, don't they? They take their responsibility for their lives and they have different experiences from me. It all depends on our own natal chart and how these things unfold. But either way, we shall see that 270 degrees of our natal Saturn cycle will be at that first 22-year-old mark. And this is where we get the opportunity to really learn about taking responsibility. And we often find that those things that did support us aren't always there as easily and as quickly as they once were, because we're learning that we've got to support ourselves. We've got to stand up and stand for ourselves at this point. And it will take another 7 years and a couple of months, and then we have our Saturn return, which really takes a few years. In Vedic astrology, they say it takes 9 whole years, which would be actually when Saturn goes into the sign before your natal sign and until it surpasses the sign after your natal sign. So if, like me, you have Saturn in Sagittarius, this means that basically your Saturn return would start upon the ingress of Saturn into Scorpio and wouldn't finish until Saturn's finished and cleared the way through Capricorn. However, that's Vedic astrology. In tropical astrology, we just generally count it for the 3 years that Saturn's within your own sign. Or if you're really being cheeky about it, you might just say it's within 10-degree orb either side. Either way, Saturn will return back to its natal position after 29 years. This is our Saturn conjunction. It's the end of a Saturn cycle and the beginning of a new Saturn cycle as well. So we can see that not only are we being challenged to support ourselves where we maybe have fallen short of certain things, like with our health, maybe with our money, with our accountability in some way, shape or form, we're being asked to take responsibility so that we can actually last and have longevity over the course of the next 29-year cycle until the age of 58, when we have our second Saturn return. And so this is a culmination of a time frame where we recognize that we have supported ourselves and where we have not. So we can better take responsibility facing our most unrecognized parts of ourselves. This isn't just about the physical realm. This is psychological too. So where we find in our relationships with other people, where we self-sabotage, whether it's food, lovers, our parents, whatever it is, we have got the opportunity to see whatever's coming up for us through our shadows is to gain us greater resolution on our consciousness moving forward. And just an example for you guys, you might be familiar with that film, Freddy Got Fingered. Not Freddy Got Fingered, excuse me, Drop Dead Fred. Drop Dead Fred. It's actually about Saturn return because it had that Rick Mayall, famous English comedian, very funny man. He died a few years ago, but he played this kind of imaginary friend, because sometimes we have a dark night of the soul, you know, with regards to some of the psychological developments of ourselves that we haven't quite fathomed. And Saturn does rule the dark night. Saturn encompasses everything. Everything's within Saturn's realm, except for the transpersonal planets, which are Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. But before we knew of those, we would deal with our psychological dark nights with regards to Saturn, because Saturn rules time and every story plays out through time. And so we get to cut ourselves free. Saturn carries a sickle, which is the time wave. And so it is actually through the many, many cycles of the moon. There's about almost 370 cycles within a Saturn return. That actually, because there's 13 lunar cycles per year, so that's 13/28. It makes it almost 360, which is beautiful geometry. 360 lunar cycles within a Saturn cycle. It's beautiful geometry. And so every lunar cycle is an opportunity to purge an old story, to use Saturn's sickle to cut ourselves free. In the mythology, Saturn carries a sickle. Pluto, death, carries a sickle. It's called death for a reason, because it's beyond light's an illusion. It's actually about what we perceive as a sound vibration frequency, because death, you hear me, is something you feel, it's felt. Death is something you hear, it's a vibration. You either hear it or you don't. You're either present and you feel it or you do not. And Saturn will squeeze you until it crystallizes your coal into conscious awareness. And that is really what's being asked for us to pay attention to, whether it's paying your bills, taking care of your physical vessel, whether it's taking care of your relationships with your children or your parents, paying the bills with your own gifts and skill sets. Saturn will ask you to pay attention. And if it's about a relationship with yourself, if you don't talk to yourself, Saturn will give you the thing to recognize yourself, give you the attention slip so that you can pay the debt. It's emotional debts, so that we can actually rise beyond the deluge, so we can rise beyond our unconscious. This is what Saturn teaches us on a deep emotional, metaphysical level. And so it teaches us beyond space and beyond time. So basically, when Saturn's cycle finishes, it gives us an opportunity to recognize that we can support ourselves in a better way, gaining greater longevity, facing these unrecognized parts, and supporting ourselves within our own command beyond the depths of our space and time. And so here we go. Let's keep on moving. This was Saturn. We're going to go back into this. So that was just an overview. Jupiter. Well, Jupiter's more close than Saturn, isn't it? It only takes 12 years for our Jupiter cycle, or so they say. It's actually a little bit less than 12 years. I'd say it's more like 11 and a half years, really. And sometimes it can be a little bit longer. Sometimes it can be a little bit more short. And this is like something which you look at with regards to your ephemeris. You say, well, it's clearly taking less time than 12 years, like this Jupiter cycle, but yet we call it 12 years because it fits easier with a sentence. Okay, and so it is that Jupiter opening square is actually about 2 years and 9 months. It's a 90-degree angle, just like Saturn. This is how we count things in astrology. We break our circles into different quarters, and it's very easy for us to do that. They're like trimesters, if you will. So this is where we gain the opportunity to differentiate between our different schools of thought, i.e. there might be a dad or a mum or like a brother or a sister, and you can learn from these different people that they've got different operating systems, different belief systems, different ways that you can play different parents off of one another around the age of terrible 2, when you're going into 3. We've got to remember also that you have your first Mars return, Mars being all about kicking up a temper, keeping up a storm. That happens at about 100 weeks old, just before you get to the age of 2. So that's something to be aware of also. So we have our Jupiter opposition, which is 180 degrees down the line, where we get to face with our belief systems, if you will, head to head. And that happens at the age of, it's going to be just on the age of, before the age of 6, let's say it's about the 5.5. This is the stage where we can break free of imposing beliefs and demonstrate our own, ability to go our own ways. I don't care. I will have orange juice after 6 p.m. I can play mum because I can see that Dan's got a different belief system to the mum, and then I'll just get my own way anyway. And so we can run amok, and it can cause us a lot of tension, but we learn that actually there is benefits to also playing with the rules, because we get better support with that also. We've got to remember that this is a similar kind of time we want to break free, but we know that we get certain things from paying attention to what we're being told to do as well. We get rewards, don't we? And so it's not just rewards from our parents, but we can find that we draw a more beautiful picture when we colour within the lines. We find that we might get a rewarding meal if we eat it off our plates rather than smear it on the walls. That's kind of thing. So it's a bit like, okay, well, we're being boxed in a little bit. We want to be a bit Saturnian, but we want to break free a bit. It's this kind of Jupiter opposition time. So then we have the 270-degree moment. And that happens at about 9 years old. At this stage, we have experienced enough to feel courageous enough to purge and let go of whatever we feel is in our way. Accomplishing personal triumphs just around the corner. It's like, okay, well, I want to get to high school. Okay, well, I know that I've grown up beyond this and beyond that. I can do this, I can create. I'm kind of free, but yet I still need certain helping hands with certain things. I still need, rewards from our parents so that we can go out and do certain things. We still need the support structure at this stage, don't we? It's before the Saturn opposition, it's after the Saturn square, it's our Jupiter third quarter closing square. And so we can notice all our personal triumphs and see that we're able to accomplish much more in the impending, not so far distant future. When we have our Jupiter return, which is just before 12 years old, or thereabouts, we complete our first Jupiter cycle, experiencing the outcome of our hero's journey. We're like, wow, I can go and do sports teams. Wow, I can go to the disco maybe. Wow, I can go out without my parents. Wow, this is brilliant, this kind of adaptation of our own freedom. And yet we know that even, well, now, like not at 12 years old, but looking back, we know that actually we're about to go on to our second Jupiter cycle, and we can learn to build faith in our skills. We can learn to build trust in ourselves and explore this reality as an independent being, as a mini adult, as an adolescent. We hit puberty, don't we? We get into our sexual creativity, even maybe a sense of spirituality at this stage. And so this is really interesting. This is what we sort of an overview of both of these cycles here. And this would be the end of the first part of this presentation, which is about to get more magic. Trust me, when we get to the Venus bit, there's some very interesting things that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. And so I was like, okay, well, Saturn's going around, and we got these different ways of learning about our cycles. This is just the differentiation of how the breakdown on the quarterly basis of how these work for you. And so thanks for sticking around. We're going to look at the chart and how this plays out now over the course of 29 years. And so thanks for sticking in there. I've got a lot more to share. The Venus bit is just very exciting. But at first, we're going to look at this template of time. So thanks for sticking around. I see you, Astrocast and Jenna and Dana. Thank you each for your presence. Let's just get this chart on the screen. It's getting dark here. I spent a lot of time organising this, much longer than I perceived I was going to. But here you go. This is actually set up for my natal chart. I'm using mine. It's just easier. It's quicker. I ain't got any other examples to give you right here, right now. But you can imagine it with your own natal chart with the same time frame. And you can use online resources like astro.com to cast your own chart, as well as planetwatcher.com to look at all the cycles if you haven't got your own astrology program. So you see here, this is when I was born. I was actually born on December the 26th, 1986. And we're going to see how this plays out over the course of the lifespan, the first 29-year lifespan. You see that actually, this is neither here nor there. I'm born with a opening Jupiter-Saturn square, which means that it was 3 years after a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Or it's actually about 6 years, isn't it? So there's this elliptical nature to it because they can make that conjunction in Libra in 1980. So anyway, let's go forward from this point onwards, and we'll see that there's this lifespan nature to how this takes place, okay? And so the first major thing is about 3 years old, just before that. So we go 1, 2, 3, and it doesn't work because we've got to see that we've got to go into 2 years and 8 months. So if I go back by 4 months here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's different of each one. I had to go back 7 months, which means it was actually more like 2 years and 4 months. And I had my first Jupiter opening square. It will be different to everybody depending on the way that Jupiter retrogrades. And I whittled this down, went back and forth, and I went through 2 Jupiter cycles to study this. I went through a few Jupiter cycles to see that it's a little bit different each and every single time. So the academics, we just want to break it down, that we can have it fixed with regards to linear time or solar time, but it's just not the same each and every single time. It is different. However, that would be a first quarter square for you guys there. And when we get to the opposition, we'll see that actually this is at 5, almost 6 years old. However, this opposition is taking place. Oh, there we go, by the month. Goodness gracious me. So like, you can't just do it by the year. It's not good enough. I've got this opposition around this point here. And because I've got it 16 degrees Pisces. And so this is at about 5 years, 7 months. As you see, actually, I'm born in 86. This is August. That's about right, isn't it? Also, this is a return to this is actually where Saturn is now. This is 29 years ago to the day, or when Saturn comes out of shadow in January 1992. And so this is an intriguing part of our cycle, isn't it? We keep on moving, and we'll see that actually we have our Saturn first quarter at the next point, and this will be at 7 years. So this is meant to be 6. This is meant to be 5 years and just after 5.5 years. So 2 years later, or thereabouts, 7 years and 3 months, 7 years and 4 months into our lives, we should have our first Saturn quarter. As you see, Saturn goes retrograde, and it will be here. At that point, for me, well, I had my first Saturn quarter in 1995. It made a square back to my own natal Saturn, which was in Sagittarius. It's funny, isn't it? You see Jupiter swapping all around. What an absolute saga life can be. And so here we go. We keep on moving, and then it would be our Jupiter third quarter. As you see, it's my Jupiter third quarter right here at that same time, because it's about a year later. And it's very poignant when you have Saturn first quarter square, Jupiter third quarter square at the same time. This is very potent. It means so much more. So I want to break free of old belief systems. They're outdated. I don't need my hand held when I'm crossing the road. I want to be independent, but I still want pocket money, please, Mum. I still want money for lunch, please, Mum. But I don't want to hold your hand when crossing the road. I'm 7 or 8 years old, for goodness sakes. This is the kind of thing. Like, I want to walk to school on my own, but I don't really want to go to school anyway. But, it's this kind of thing. But, Mum, please, can you buy me my school uniform and my favourite new game? That kind of thing is some silly examples which we might have. And so here you go. But we actually have our Jupiter return at the age of 11 and a half, or thereabouts. So for me, this would be around here, 1998, year of the tiger, which is when you have your Jupiter return, when it returns back to the same Chinese zodiac year as yourself. And so that is 11 years, almost 12 years into cycle. We recognize that actually it's coming along quite rapidly. See if I should put it back to the same degree, that'd be there. There you go. We see that Saturn has actually gone through a trine back to the natal Saturn by this point as well. So we keep on going, and we'll see that when we get to the age of 14, we have our Saturn opposition, and Jupiter's whipping her back around again for what will be a Jupiter first quarter square once more. Jupiter's so fast, it's much more fast than we give it credit for. It's not 12 years that it does its cycle, but sometimes it slows down and the retrogrades seem more expansive. I noticed this through watching it through time, extended time. So here we go. This is we bring it to the month. This is actually as I told you, I was agoraphobic for a little period. And it was about 18 months before my Saturn opposition, I was agoraphobic. 9/11, actually. That's when that had to return to school after that period. So Saturn opposition was a very big confrontation. It's like now or never. Are you victim or are you victorious? And so that's what's going on at this point when you're about 14 and a half. And so we keep on moving, and we have a Jupiter opposition at the same time as a Saturn third quarter square at the age of 22 or thereabouts. So it's like another 7 years from this point. Let's move it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is meant to be having this Saturn closing square to where I have it in my natal of Jupiter at 14. And so there you go. That's in 2009, which means it's 7 years before the Saturn return again, or 7 years and 3 months before Saturn return, which took place for me in 2015. So there you go. You see that Saturn Jupiter opposition taking place in 2010, and another Jupiter return for me here. So it's my second Jupiter cycle just after that Saturn third quarter square. So you see that the maturing is like mixing of a cake. It takes time. It takes time for these things to take place. But it's all cognitive, it's all beautiful, and yet they're not fixed into Gregorian calendar times. So I had my Saturn return here, 2015, 2016, and it was square Jupiter. Obviously, I'm born with Saturn square Jupiter, but my Jupiter is in Pisces. This is a different type of square for my Saturn return. It's a Jupiter-Saturn closing square. And so this is what you can see in the depth of these cycles and how beautiful that they take place. And so I wanted to share with you that. And I was like, okay, well, where's this beautiful synchronization? Where's the beauty and synchronization I was feeling? I was like, it's so great to know our Saturn cycle, so great to know our Jupiter cycle and to plot them and to map them. But how do they come together? We know that actually the Saturn-Jupiter cycle themselves, they come together in their own synchronization of having a conjunction every 20 years and having an opposition every 20 years, having a conjunction every 20 years and having an opposition every 20 years. But that's different to how it plays out in our natal charts, as we just seen, because the quarters, the returns, the oppositions, the conjunctions, they're all happening on a different ratio to the actual Saturn-Jupiter opposition. If that was like a coming together of symbols, they ring on out forever, like even crashing of symbols. The nature of a symbolic symbol, like a glyph, is that it rings on out infinitely beyond time. And so I was like, I need to find something of greater depth. I need to find something with crystal Christ consciousness. What's between us? What's the glue that adds it all together? Well, it's Venus. So let me go back to my presentation. Thank you for sticking around. If you want to book a natal chart reading of me, you can do so. The way to do so is actually via all of the links which are in the description box below. I'm here to serve you. Here we share my screen once more. Here we go. It's not a chart this time. We're back to the presentation. So here we go. This is Venus, right? And we're talking about this in a slightly different way. We're not talking about it from the quarter and opposition and the closing square. Oh no. Venus, we have our Venus return, often less than an annual solar cycle. It all depends. With Venus shifting from post which is like the evening star or the morning star. Venus is currently the evening star. I'll probably appear in a minute over there. And then every 18 months it will go from the evening star to the morning star, and every 18 months it will go from the morning star to the evening star, retrogressing in between for 40 days and 40 nights. We know that story, don't we? We have to go within, and it's in those 40 days and 40 nights that Venus actually isn't visible, goes into the underworld, falls beneath the beams of the sun. Later to be caught up with the sun moving beyond it. So it's like in the zodiac, it will be that it moves in front of the sun to moving behind the sun. If it's moving in front of the sun, we'll see it as a different phase. So if Venus is traveling more than 10 degrees behind the sun in the precession of the wandering stars, in the zodiac it is within the morning star phase. While if Venus is more than 10 degrees in front of the sun, then Venus will be in the evening star phase. Like Venus is currently in Scorpio. The sun is back in Libra, so it's the evening star. But it will be this winter, in December, Venus will slow down and go retrograde in Capricorn, and the sun will catch up and make a conjunction with Venus at 18 degrees of Capricorn. And then Venus will fall behind the sun in the zodiac and will eventually be born again in February as the morning star, the last visible star before the sun dawns. Currently, the sun has just cleared off and set, and Venus will be the first star that appears in about 15 minutes from where I am right now as I record this. It is that Venus shall retrograde in 5 points of our sky every 18 months, 150 degrees from its last retrograde, tracing the unfolding of a rose, a 5-pointed star, like a pentagram or pentacle. A quincunx from one another. Quincunx is this 150-degree angle. It's quintessential. It's like a Venetian aspect. It's like integration. You can't see it in the physical. It's like I feel it in my fingers. It's like a sensation. I feel it in the depth of my perception. I feel it even in my toes. This is currently taking place in all of these energies. So firstly, it's like it will retrograde in Scorpio. And now it's retrogressing in the very end degrees of Libra as well, which is a slip. It only started over the course of the past 8 years or so. The last 8 years, not 8 years ago, it was about 2-3 years ago, Venus retrogressed back in Scorpio and even into the beginning degrees of Libra, where it hadn't done that in centuries. And give it another 30 years, Venus won't be retrograde in Scorpio whatsoever. It will be just all in Libra. But that's by of the by from this point. Venus last went retrograde in Gemini. That was last year in 2020. Venus will this year retrograde in Capricorn. And then, again, it will retrograde in Leo. And then it will do it in Aries, moving back from the very beginning degrees of Aries into the last degrees of Pisces. Eventually, it will stop retrogressing in Aries and will just do it in Pisces. Okay? Very cool, huh? I love it. So we see Venus returns. This is where it gets exotic. This is when this presentation gets magical. This is when I'm very excited to share what I'm sharing here. And so Venus shall return to the same degree of our zodiac by date every 8 years. What? Yes. This means that every 8th solar return, you shall have a Venus return. Also, the dates of each year's Venus return shall follow suit in a pattern every 8 years. yes, this means a lot. This is your psychological development tool that I'm showing you here right now. You can just do it yourself with your own research, with your own chart, with these tools that I'm handing you. This gives us the ability to discover the depth, excuse the spelling there, it discovers the depth and meaning in how our personal stories unfold. They unfold through time. Time spelled T-I-M-E. But if you spell time like the herb, T-H-Y-M-E, and you think of the signification of that herb, it's aromatic. It means aromatic. It means that we air out all of our layers of all of our stories through the experience of a third dimensional physical realm known as time. Through time, as well as we see all of these reoccurring themes with a tremendous depth. Example, in 1986, December the 26th, Venus was at 19 degrees of Scorpio. This was when I was born. Also, returned to this degree in the same date in the years 1994, December 26th, December 26th, 2002, December 26th, 2010, you'll find Venus at 19 degrees of Scorpio, as well as in 2018. The next time it's going to be at 19 degrees of Scorpio in December on the 26th will be in 2026. That's madness. It's not just about me. I'm just using myself as an example. So here we go. I'm going to continue to use myself as an example, but please think about yourself. Please consider yourself. So here's are the dates for all of these cycles and phase returns for myself, but you can please just think about you. This might be a bit complicated, so I'm going to share how this works on the screen afterwards. So before I was born, a couple of months before I was born, Venus retrograde in Scorpio and its morning star phase. And so when I was born, Venus was on December the 26th, 1986. Venus was at 19 degrees of Scorpio, and it returned to that place, as I've just said, in 1994, 2002, and again, it will next do it in 2026. I think it did another one in between that. I just missed it off. Excuse me. 2018. Yeah, and so, but the thing is, I had my second Venus return, of course, only a year later. We have a Venus return every year, just about. And so it was actually in October the 23rd, 1987. I wasn't even a year old, and I had my first Venus return. That would have been the same for pretty much most people. Venus didn't retrograde, so it made it around the whole of the zodiac in less than a year, of course. And it would also return every October the 23rd in the years 1995, 2004, 2012, and 2019. It's going to return on October the 23rd, will be in 2027. And so I recognize that those years, Venus will always be returning to a morning star phase in those years. And also I can think through experience, okay, well, 1987, don't remember that, I was a baby. 1995, well, I was at school maybe, can remember this, can remember that. Oh, 2004. Well, in 2004, you know, my dad died in 2005, actually, my biological father. So that's a memory. And it means that within that Venetian cycle, my father would have passed away. And so I looked at that chart and I can see it, actually. I can see the quantifiable nature, the significance of actually having Mars conjunct my Venus. My dad actually had his sun conjunct my Venus natally anyway, and I'd lose the man in that cycle. It was actually not until the very end of that cycle in December 2005, and I'd have a Venus return again a few days later. But the point is also that Venus would go retrograde in Gemini and be in its evening star phase. So it's a completely different diagnosis. And for you guys, the order of these retrogrades and phases are going to be the same for you. So if you're utilizing the ability to see these dates and apply them to yourselves, the phase is going to be the same with regards to Venus being in the evening. There it is there. It's just appeared. I can see it. I won't show you guys, but it is there. It's getting high. It's getting far extended from the sun. It's going to start to slow down soon, is that Venus. And so anyway, the evening star phase would last for 18 months, and I'd have another Venus return. It would be in 1989, in September the 28th. Now, this is a bit that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's September the 25th as we record this video, which means that actually, in 3 days, I've got Venus return. I do. This is something which is very academic, very beneficial. So I can look back, okay, well, I'm within this Venetian cycle. The last time Venus went retrograde was in Gemini. It's the evening star. I can see it as I speak to you guys. I can see it right there. It's an omen. Oh man, it's an omen. The evening star, Venus, is currently at 16, 17 degrees of Scorpio, right there. I'll have my Venus return on Monday, on the 28th. It might be Tuesday. Either way, I won't have a Venus return while in this phase again, obviously, until the what will it be? It'll be 2029. And so the point is, I can go back. Okay, what's going on in these cycles? What's going on in these cycles that I'm so familiar with? 1997, 2005, 2013. What's the ilk? What's the overarching theme? What can I derive from this? What does it mean? Well, Venus will go retrograde in Capricorn, won't it? This December. We've already mentioned it. And so I can recognize that Venus went retrograde in Capricorn just after every time that Venus returned in this phase, in 1989, in 1997, in 2005. So if I can think what happened just after 2005, I can consider what might go on in this next Venus retrograde in Capricorn. And what's it going to mean for me? What happened in 2013, a few months after I had the Venus return on the 28th of September? What happened when Venus went into Capricorn and went retrograde and turned to its morning star phase in the winter of 2013 into 2014? If I can derive that, I might be able to charter the course of my actions this coming winter, because it's going to happen on a different level. It's going to happen with different people, but the arc, the depth, the meaning could mean I'm able to really help navigate myself through this coming winter due to being aware of this continuing, reoccurring cycle. I'll keep going. We're nearly done. The fifth one happened on November the 8th. So you can look back and find in your personal natal chart, with regards to the first 8 years of your life, the first 8 Venus returns, and know that these key dates, which are the key dates for me, firstly, it was December 26th, which was my solar return, October the 23rd, December the 8th, September the 28th, November the 8th, which will be my Venus return next year in 2002. I already know, November the 8th, next year, it's my Venus return. And we're going to have it in a morning star phase. But yet, Venus will go retrograde next in Leo, won't it? And return back to the evening star, which is where it will be by 2023. You know, it tells us so much. But that will be the same with what I experienced back in 1991, back in 1999, baby. And that's really powerful to know that. 2007, one of my favorite years. I loved it. And 2015, well, that's really where I put myself on course. That was the beginning of a Saturn return. So we can also weave this with our other cycles and see that it's not always going to be the same. Maybe it's this time, that time, this time, that time. We can find there's a certain flair or shade to them. There's a lot of depth. If you think about weaving, if you've ever done a tapestry or a Wiccan practice, if you've ever made a basket, if you've ever gone maypole dancing, if you ever plaited or braided hair, you can consider this to be a very fine way to see our cycles. Over and under and under and in, over and under and under and in. It's like the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. We're talking about our spiritual connection to ourselves and our physical mundane connection to ourselves. I'm talking about our relationship to the external and to the internal. Every 18 months, it's the evening star and the morning star, the Easter star and the West End star. Because the evening star is down west and the morning star is out east. And so we're talking about our perpetual ability to honor ourselves internally and externally. It's a beautiful thing. It's Venus, Christ consciousness. Some call it Jesus, others call it Moses. I just like to call it the beauty within you and me. And so, yeah, It was actually the 7th Venus return, and that fell on October the 10th in 1992, year 2000, 2008. That was a tougher year, so I recognised that. And also 2016 had trials and tribulations, rewards and parts of things which were really hard as well. And so the next time that's going to be going on for me will be in 2024. It could be rewarding trials and tribulations. It could be that you need to do one's due diligence as well, so that we pay attention to these cycles. It tells us so much. And lastly, is that it will go retrograde in Aries and Pisces and return back to its morning star phase for my 8th Venus return. Excuse me, the presentation's not so tight down the bottom there, but you can see that actually November the 21st was the way that Venus would be returning in 1993, 2001. I was agoraphobic then. So it means a lot to retrace our steps. It takes a lot of time to really fathom what we've been through. When we become so heroic in our own eyes, when we recognize all that we've been through, it means that we can really set ourselves up for success, moving through whatever's beyond us, whatever's right in front of our noses. 2009, 2017, and 2025. It was only 2017 the other year. That's when I started working for this platform, very reputable astrological platform, Astrological, working and interviewing fellow astrologers like Santos Bonacci, and I've interviewed over 100 astrologers on my YouTube channel these days, over 100 of world-renowned astrologers, which I deemed as my heroes. And so we can do anything within time. We can air out every single layer, because Venus is a Fibonacci golden ratio. In fact, Venus is time. So we can recognize that time is this perfect illusion. Yeah, you think about Alice in Wonderland. Alice fell down the rabbit hole, didn't she? That's time. We are the stars that fallen out from beyond incarnation into the body. We have to fall from just spiritual grace to come into the embodiment of experience. And it's in the embodiment of experience that we air out and live out these stories. You wouldn't be able to unless you had a body, unless you were able to embody what it is to be loved, to feel not loved, to feel discarded, to feel reprimanded, but also to feel delighted, to feel joy, to feel the sensations of smell, touch, and sight. All of these different things. This only happens in time. And it's a Fibonacci ratio, is this Venus dance, this quincunx. It's like this plus this equals that. And then it adds up to this, and it adds up to that. And this is how the building blocks of our body are made. We look at the Da Vinci Code, it's all Fibonacci because it takes your breath away. When you see beauty, it sucks you right in. It's like all of the different ratios of our face. It's perfect. It sucks us right in because we get encapsulated by it. And different people allow us to project. We allow these various different beautiful things, whether it's a landscape in Mother Earth, whether it is our parents, whether it's our sisters, whether it's our friends, whether it's our lovers. We get sucked in by the beauty, by the Fibonacci. It's a fib of no lie because it's the chi, fib of no chi, that takes our breath away. We're like, I'm just going to project. I'll get sucked in because it's this story with that lover or with that thing that I'm passionate about that'll get me the opportunity to air out parts of myself, parts of yourself that you've never seen clearly before, because our nature is clarity and we're full of blemishes. We're full of obscured abilities to see ourselves clearly. And it is through time, through these cycles, that we gain the opportunity to put down all of these heavinesses, all of these old heavy stories. It's our baggage claim. Earth. We earth out our dirty laundry. We earth out all within this experience. It's the atmosphere where we find that anything that makes us feel inferior is presented back to us through the holographic nature of this golden ratio we know as time. I intend that not only you picking up on the academics, but you can see the beneficial nature of what I've been revealing through the metaphysical language of astrology. The depth of storytelling becomes our own when we take responsibility and respond rather than react and push things away. Say, that's not me. I'm here to love me. And you are me. You're not something that's teaching me about who I'm not. You're teaching me about who I am. And so that's love. That's pure beauty. That's what we gain through time. And I'm not done yet. Thank you for sticking around. If you want a personal consultation, if you want astrological mentorship, I'm here for you. Just get in contact. All the information you need is in the description box below. Now, what I'm going to do is give you some evidence for what I shared about Venus. Yep, I'm not quite done. Almost done. I'm not quite done yet, though. I'm going to share with you the chart on the screen one more time, and we can look at those Venus returns and just show you how they happen on those dates, because I felt like it was a very powerful piece of information which I shared with you. Thank you for your feedback in the live chat. Thank you for any comments that you've got about all of this and that, because this is a beautiful display of how we can find and discover so much through the lens and tapestry of astrology. As I say, it's a tapestry because it's over and under and in. And that's what we do with all of our experiences through the world of sin, through the time wave, because we haven't seen it all until we've seen it through various different angles, till we gain omnipresence through 360 degrees of our experience. And this is what we gain so much from with astrology. It is the ability to see ourselves again and again through different angles. In fact, we are all the angels. We are all the different arcs. We are every archetype. And so if we can see that we are all the planets, we are everybody in our reality. It's a hall of mirrors. Then we can respond with love continuously throughout our reality. So let me get this on the screen. Goodness gracious, I'm almost done with this presentation. I just felt inspired. Made it for you guys, shared it with you guys. Now you've got it. What are you going to do with it? Let me know how you are finding the benefits from knowing that we have a Venus return in these different dates every single year. I mean, it's so beneficial, isn't it? It's so beneficial to know. Okay, so this is the current sky. As I say, that moon is just finishing up in Taurus, Venus's sign. And we've had this opposition between Venus and Uranus recently. Oh my gosh, it's a saga. I'm not going to be talking about it forever long. Mercury station retrograde tomorrow, manana at 25 degrees, going back to 10 degrees of Libra. These are stories which we don't need to talk about because we know all about them. We see that this moon's going to go in, make ingress into Gemini, joining Rahu, the North Node, which you can't see on this chart, which means we'll have a grand air trine with the Sun and Mars and Saturn over the course of these next few hours moving into tomorrow. But anyway, as I said, it's my Venus return. 2 days' time. Here it is on the 27th, 28th. Those dates I gave you, it can be give or take a date. Don't hold me to it if it's one day off. It can be give or take a date. And it's often very annually the same. So if we got Venus here, it doesn't matter that it's my return. You can use any date. Let's just use it as an example. Here we go. This is the brilliance of it. I want to hear you in the live chat be in awe of this, because I'm in awe of this. Let me see how many of you in the live video. 78 in this live video right now. I'm going to go to the nearest and most recent comment just because I'm in awe of it. I want to see how you guys are too. Let's see if I can get this thing moving. Oh, it's not going to let me. It won't let me refresh the chat box. So I just got to have faith in you guys in the comments. Oh, I got it. It refreshed it. Goodness gracious. Okay, so I see you, Catherine. Thank you for your presence. Mind blown. Yeah, and Elizabeth, thank you for your brilliance. I'm grateful. And Vicky, all of you are fantastic. So here we go. I'm going to focus on the chart. So look at Venus. If I just go forward, we're going to go into the future, into the year 2028. If I've got a Mac, hit Shift and Command. Thank you, Paradigms. You are brilliant with your name. So let's go forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my gosh! In the year 2009, I've got a Venus return. Why don't we check out the year 2036? I bet there's another, or 37. Let's check out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it's actually going to be on September the 26th in the year 37. Well, there you go. Blow me down, Olive, if you will. There you go. It's the Venus return. So let's go back, shall we? So, because as I said, this isn't my natal Venus cycle. Oh, no. My natal Venus cycle was born after the Venus retrograde in Scorpio. I'm born after Venus retrograde in Scorpio. So if I go back to 1986, just for this last example, just so you can see, because it's a pretty cool example if you ask me. I'm hooting my own horn, because it's actually that Venus brings the Saturn and Jupiter together. This is what I feel like. Venus is the quantifiable nature of recognizing this is a hologram. Our reality is a hologram, and the beauty is you and I as the doctors of time within this space. It is actually you and I that change the script of our story. We are the alternative. We are the narrator, and we must embody Jupiter and Saturn and come together and recognize that we are this consciousness embodied by Jupiter and Saturn that is Venus in between the two. Okay, so let me get back to what I'm talking about. See, Venus went retrograde here. Let's just show you that. There we go. Goodness gracious me. I knew that I'd go on a few diversions if I started going on the charts here. Look at this. So we got, this is before I was born. I was born in December. But we see that we have a Venus star point at 12 degrees of Scorpio here. And this was before I was born. Venus retrograde in Scorpio, right? So if I move it forward by the week, here we go. 1, 2, 3, like a few weeks. Venus from retrograde, finish its shadow. Okay, here I'm born. I'm born the day after Christmas. On the 19th. Well, Venus was on the 19th degree here. I was born a little bit before this. I've got the moon in Libra, but there you go. Point is that Venus has returned to degree here. We can go back here. Actually, I know that in 1984, we have... Actually, it won't be 1984, but I know, this is interesting, okay? We've got Leonardo Dicaprio, who's got the same Venus degree as me. Let's go back 8 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? This is 1987. This is not Leonardo DiCaprio's chart, but he's got it at this same degree, which is very interesting, isn't it? So this is obviously 8 years before I was born. It's just interesting to see. So he would have been born with Venus. Let's just check these other dates that I got written down. I've got his chart. That's easier. Let me just pull his chart up in the background here, just for the intrigue of my own curiosity. What's going on here? Open, share files. Leonardo. Oh gosh, I didn't type his name correctly here. Let me try that again. I appreciate you sticking around. It is interesting. I don't think I spell it right. His name. Maybe I've got it here. I'll get there. Bear with me. See, this is the thing with doing things on the fly. It means you're going with your inspiration, which is always good, but you've got to be a bit more organized sometimes, right? Leonardo. Can't spell his name. DiCaprio. See if that works. Because I know that he has his, he's born actually in October, Leonardo. But there we go. I just have to scrap that because now my program's not responding. So there you go. That's because I feel like we've got this moon changing right at the end of the sky, and I should not have been fiddling with that with this Mercury station. But there you go. I'm going to pull it back up and we'll finish what we're doing. Why? Because I'm a Capricorn and we don't finish by halves. So thanks for your patience. If you're intrigued, I'll talk about some other things while we're getting this program up and going. Like you booking a consultation with me, you can do so if you want your solar return chart, your Venus return chart, anything like that. I'm available for you. All the information's in the description box below. My honor, pride, and privilege. But also, this this Mercury retrograde is taking place tomorrow. As I said, it's actually going to be retrograde until the 18th of October, when it goes back to 10 degrees of Libra, and it will still be in shadow until the 2nd of November, and then ingress into Scorpio on the 5th of November. Remember that date; it's an important one. And so, yes, I've got this program loading again. If you're interested in making a purchase of such an astrological program, it's called Solar Fire. Google it. I'm sure you'll be able to find it there. Anyway, I see you there continuing to be present. Thanks for sticking around. Elizabeth Brand, I see you there. The program's up and back and running here. Here we go. It's almost there. It's 7 o'clock here in Mexico, intending that you're having a fantastic weekend. And here we go. Oh, bloody hell. I've got everyone and their mother's chart up here now. Goodness me. Open. Let's just look at this Leonardo. Can I search for famous film stars? No. Goodness. It won't work. We'll get there. Open charts. So now we've got this hot presentation with this dud air at the end. So I'm probably going to end the presentation in 1 minute or two. I just wanted to show a couple more bits on the screen. Open. Here we go. Film stars. All kinds of people here. I appreciate your patience. We're almost there. Oh, I found it. That's not it. It's not there. Decap. Champ. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, we'll have to scrap this plan for looking at Dicaprio. How about that? I'll pull up this screen one more time, though, and we'll have a little look at these 8s, because these 8s are very interesting. I see you, Sarah Bliss. You say, try your one. Yeah, I'll try your one. You can do it yourself. I'm here to serve you if you want a natal chart one, though. It happens with any date. Any date that you've got, it will work. And so what we'll do is we'll just pull a random date. I would like to think that actually, if I can go like this, 1 month forward. Oh, goodness me. There we go. We're going to find that Leo's chart. I'm determined. Here we go. He's born in 1970. Here we go. This is Leonardo, 1974. Oh, I knew it. Here we go. He's got the moon in Libra and Mercury's there as well, in a conjunction with Uranus. 19 degrees of Scorpio in a conjunction with the sun. He's born the same day as my dad, and he's got the same Venus as me, which means every 8 years, Leonardo will have a Venus return. It's different to my one, because my one would be at this November the 10th, isn't it? So if I go back, I should have November the 10th written on my presentation, shouldn't I? In theory, that should be correct. That I will have, all around that date, November the 10th will be a date where I have a Venus return. November the 8th. So yeah, it's in that cycle. It's always within a couple of days within that cycle. So basically, if I go forward 8 years, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1982, and then add on another. So that's actually the solar return for Leonardo at 8 years old. He had Jupiter, Venus, and the sun. Well, he was a film star within this 8-year cycle, isn't it? If you consider them 8-year cycles, by the time he was 16, he was famous. Anyway, let's keep going forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, I'm not born in November, but I was born that year when Venus retrograde in 1986. On his birthday, Venus was retrograde that year, but it was a month later that I was born. So anyway, you can see that every 8 years you have this Venus return. And so it's absolutely amazing. I was just really pleased to share with you guys that you can find and plot this. And it's a bit like, if you was actually to do a graph, you could actually have a bar chart graph, which I've considered doing, and you'd have a stream of knowing when each of these tails go on. It's like, okay, well, I can announce that this red stream, well, that's where I always have to face a bereavement, or where I have to face part of myself that I need to take responsibility for. And then there's the one which opens up opportunities. And so every 8th year you could think, okay, well, this might be a bit of a squeeze this year coming around. This one might be more opportune. And so we can think, okay, well, how do I prepare myself to make the most of this opportunity? How do I prepare myself to be able to deal with the squeeze that we're learning through within these phases, within these experiences? Anyway, I probably should have finished 5 minutes ago when I was having that really astute kind of perfect golden ratio ending. But I was determined to be able to see and show you that Leonardo Dicaprio bit. I wish I could edit the end off, but there you go. I appreciate you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for making your investments in a consultation of me. I'm here to serve you. We're back to talk about that new moon that we got coming up in Libra. Oh my gosh, what a humdinger. Conjunction with Mars and Venus retrograde, as well as the day before Pluto stations direct. Make the most of these last couple of weeks of Venus in Scorpio, Pluto's sign. You know, this is very beneficial for us to really see the depth of things beyond the surface level, like what I just shared with you. Intending you find the value in it. Thanks for giving yourself a thumbs up and this video too. This has been a pleasure to share with you. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your moments. Have a fantastic selection of them, and I'll speak to you again real soon. If you want that personal consultation, I'm here for you. Other than that, there for you too. I'm grateful for you. Cheerio for now.